So this one is empty. This one is empty. This one is also empty. This one is empty. So it looks like I need to make some more unicorn balm. B. Hi and welcome to this vlog. Today I am gonna show you my process of making the marigold balm. Now I have showed you how I create the balm, how I cook it down, but I haven't shown you how I harvest and how I make the infused oil and how I take care of the flowers. So I thought I would go through those steps today and show you a little more about creating the marigold balm. For those of you that haven't seen my first video or don't know how to make a balm or a salve is basically just beeswax and an oil, and usually that oil is olive oil. You can use different kinds of oil, but I think olive oil is the standard, and for me it's just the simplest one because you can get it at your local market very cheap. So you create this oil and you infuse it with whatever you want. That is optional, however. So you can just make the balm with only beeswax and oil, and it will as well protect for water and moisturize and soften the skin. And those are the three things you're looking for in a balm, particularly for horses. I use this balm for my horses' feet and mane, and every now and then they get a skin scrape, a lighter skin scrape, and then I use the oil as well. It gets sticky because it is beeswax and oil, so flies don't want to sit on it and gnats don't want to sit on it, or mosquitoes and such. So it's very good for keeping insects away as well. But primarily it's to protect their legs and the skin on their legs from being exposed to the elements. So a lot of rain and moisture, it can protect from that because it is water repellent in itself, the beeswax and oil. So that is what I primarily use it for. I infuse it with marigold just because marigold is very good for the skin, and the plant itself has some properties against fungi, I think. So it's just really accepted as a good and also a very cheap plant to make it from. I have a whole bunch of flowers that I take seed from every year, so that is absolutely cost-free for me, that part. But it's optional, and you can use whatever flower or herb, or even buy the little essential oils themselves. Hello, honeybee. And the other little guy. As you can see here, what? Oh, okay, it's that guy over there. I see. He doesn't eat chickens. He just eats frogs and worms and stuff. Don't worry. So, as you can see here, I have a lot of blooms ready for harvesting. And I actually harvested yesterday, so they move very fast, these marigolds. They really do. As you can tell, there is a lot of buds that are getting ready to open as well. So they are really productive. They really are. I might not harvest today. It might be tomorrow because it just rained this morning. But they do feel fairly dry, so I will wait and see until tonight if the ones that I have in my dehydrator are done and dehydrated. You are a very big bumblebee. So the way I harvest them is really just to take the flower and just to snip it off right below. And when you have done that, you can actually just continue down the flower stalk and bring with you the stalk it grew on. Now I usually snip it in half as well, just so it is easier to handle. And this is what I harvest from the flower. And the plant that I'm harvesting from, I can show you, it is almost as tall as me. It has grown in our bed where we have our peas and wet vegetables. And I would actually, you can see I have harvested this one before. I have also cut these off. And I can just go and take all of this. You can buy the marigold as a supplement for horses to eat, and they also have the leaves in it and stalks as well. So you can absolutely use all of it if you want to. You can take the whole bush or plant, or you can just take the flowers. I know that some only use the petals for their marigold balm. I think it's a shame because you can use the whole thing. So I usually just go and dehydrate it all, since I also feed it a little bit as a supplement when I have a year where I get a very big amount of produce from the plant. And if you're feeding it as a supplement, you don't have to dehydrate it. Hello guys, you want to have some? Oh yeah. Nej, inte stjäla. You can have your own. Oh, okay. He likes it. You guys, I can hear you. You're not very stealth. Go home. So this is my dehydrating station that I have in my living room. I took it out from the kitchen and put it on a little table here just because it took up so much space and it got really messy. I have my harvested marigolds here and I am gonna put it in the dehydrator. I use a dehydrator and I would strongly recommend using one as well, just because the flowers, they lose a lot of their color and scent if you hang them to dry from the ceiling or just air dry. So if you want to use them for something where you need to smell them or taste them for like a tea or something, which I also use, I would strongly recommend to use a dehydrator. Otherwise it's going to taste a little bit like hay and it's not really going to have that punch of marigold. After you are done dehydrating your flowers, you're going to want to put it in an airtight jar, just because the flower, when it's dry, it will seek out moisture, or it will take back some of the moisture from the air, so it won't become as dry as it was before. So these are all in an airtight container, as are the others. And that is how I store them. You want to store them somewhere where it's not too light. I usually have the curtains drawn, but it's light now when I'm filming. So store them in a cool dark space so the sun cannot get to them and bleach them out. So I'm gonna put my flowers in the dehydrator and hope they all fit. I don't think they're gonna do. Okay, so they almost all fit. I have some coneflower here that I will need to cut in half for being able to dry because they're just too thick. Now, I am sure this is not written in any manuals, but I need paperweights to weigh it down. You can see how much give it has. So I usually put a few of these. I don't know what they are. I think they're spears from a fence, but they're very heavy. So I usually keep a few of those on. There we go. And on it comes, just so it presses down, so the layers are a little bit more together. You can see it still has some give. So there we go. I usually run them for about a day and a half. Sometimes 2 days if I fill it up very tightly as it is now, just to ensure that there really is no moisture left, because if you have moisture left when you put it in a jar, it will mold. It will, there is no maybe it won't mold, it will mold. Also, if you put it in oil to infuse the oil, it will also mold there if there's water in it. So very important that it is fully dry, bone dry, when you put it in a jar or in an oil. Here is my balm making setup. I'm getting ready to make the balm over there. And I use a double boiler. So the inside here, as you can hear, is filled with water. And here is where you would put the beeswax in with the oil. Heating up the oil in itself, it makes no difference for the balm, but heating up the beeswax make it mix with the oil, and that is why we need to heat up the product so the oil and the beeswax will mix. And you can do this in a double boiler. You can do it in an oven, you can do it in just a normal regular pot, or a water bath, or a impromptu double boiler where you would have a pot with water in the bottom that would be heating up to steam, and then you would have normally a bowl made of glass or something on top with the beeswax and oil in. And that is just as good as a double boiler. I just happen to have one. Then I have my beeswax, and I buy this in bulk because it can get really expensive. You don't use a lot of it at the time, so you can see I'm going to have this for a while. And then I have my oil and herb mixture. This one is pure Marigold. And this one has been sitting for some time, I think half a year or something. This was one of the last batches I made with last year's marigolds. Then I have my infusions or oils. And here you see I have neem oil. I have quite a few of them. I use that one a lot. And neem is used primarily to keep like mites and stuff away. So it's really good if you know you have a problem with mites or scabies to use that. Then I have some eucalyptus, and this one is purely just for the scent. I enjoy the scent. And then I have my tea tree oil, and tea tree oil is good for the skin. It moisturizes and it softens, so that is why I use those ones. For my herbs, I just went out in the garden and picked some mint. This smells so good, you guys. My whole kitchen smells like mint, and you can see this one is almost blooming. And I am gonna put this in my dehydrator so I can make, because that one is the last jar I have, and the next batch I want to try and make with some mint in it as well, alongside the marigold. And here we have one of many jars of marigolds. So these ones are dried marigolds. So I am gonna start with straining the oil from the herbs. And then I put this away. So now it is time to cut the beeswax, and I'm not gonna lie, this takes a little bit strength. So I think usually you would just buy these little what are they, little drops of beeswax that is like easy to melt, but because I like to buy stuff on bulk and on a budget, I have to cut it from this lump. Here is my second little glass of beeswax, and you would go for, I think, 1/4 of the oil mass, so 1/4 you would go for, just to have it more applicable. So you want a balm that is not too runny and not too hard or tough to apply. So you would use a little less beeswax for the winter month, or very easily just keep your balm inside, and a little more beeswax in summer, just so it isn't too runny. And I think I'm happy with that amount, so I am gonna start my induction plate. I'm just gonna put it on 3 just to warm it up, and this one it goes to 9. So yes, and now it is just warming up. As soon as the beeswax starts to melt, you will see the beeswax starting to float upwards. So that is when you will start to use a spoon and just stir it a little bit. So you can see now the beeswax is already floating around, so I will put it down to 2, because if it is already melting, there's no reason for it to get any hotter. And you can see there beeswax gathering on the spoon here. So it is melting away. So I will get my oils ready. Okay, so I usually just start with 10 drops each, of course depending on how big amount I am gonna make. So this is the tea tree oil, and I'm gonna take 10 drops of this. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I think that was 10 drops. And then I will do the eucalyptus oil, and I also do 10 drops of this. There we go. I'm not making a big amount, so I'm just gonna keep it to that. I'm not sure which one of these I have. This one isn't open. This one is. So it is time for the neem oil. This one is pretty hard to get out if you get this brand that I'm getting. So it's not really fluid. Nope, it's not. So I'm gonna have to dig it out. The neem oil is a little more troublesome to get out because it's so thick. So I use about this much of it, and I think that will suffice for the amount that I'm doing today. I'm not making an incredible amount, so I think this is gonna be fine. Now I just have to wait for the last of the beeswax to melt before I add it in. So the beeswax has now melted almost completely, so I am gonna add the oils. And I do this last just so they are heated up the least. No need for them to get heated up. The neem oil just really makes it dark and almost gives it a green hue. I know it looks orange in this light, but it's really, it looks like a very rich olive oil. And it is olive oil, but let's put it in the jars. And I want to do this without spilling. And it's not gonna expand or anything when it cools, so you can just fill it up as much as you like. And I really gotta say, they smell lovely. The neem oil can smell really bad when it's not heated, but when it's heated and with the marigolds, it smells absolutely lovely. So I usually keep the lids off while they cool down, just because it will create a little bit of condensation on the lid, that is water on top. So we're just gonna let them stand and cool off. Here we have the finished balm. It is completely set now. It has a nice yellowish with a hint of green color in it because of the neem oil. And let me just use a knife. As you can see, it might be a little soft in the middle as well, but it is nice and soft, even if we have it a little hot inside. So I can store this inside for quite a long time. I would say you can use this and it won't change color or appearance for at least half a year. And I think this is what also will last me about half a year. This I use a lot of it over winter as well, just because I find that tumult's legs get worse in winter than they do in summer. So I use a lot of this. I'm very happy about how this turned out, and I cannot wait to start on the oil, or the new infused oil, with the marigold and the mint that I have drying. I am gonna reuse the jar that I had the marigolds in, and my mint here has dried overnight. So I am gonna start with some of the mint. I am just gonna put a few leaves in. I don't want it to be only mint, of course, but you can absolutely put how much you want in it. So I think a little more maybe. There we go. I think that should be sufficient. And I really wanted to start using the cone flour. And in here I do have some dried cone flour. Let's see if I can get one. This one is really pretty. I don't know if you can really see it. It has a orange center and then it is purple. And I'm just gonna pop a few of these guys in. They do smell really lovely, so that is nice. Also one here, you can see this one has been halved. Pop that in. Let's take a green and yellow one as well. And another green and yellow one. I think that's gonna be it. I think I'm also gonna use these guys for tea. Okie dokes, let's get to the marigolds. Okay, just gonna have that. There we go. Okay, so the marigolds. I use the whole thing. I use the petals and the flower heads. I will also use the stalks, and I will also use the leaves. You can do whatever you please. If you would like to use just the petals, you can absolutely do that. But I think it's a shame that the flower goes to waste, so I use the whole thing. I'm not sure where the properties of the flowers sit, so I am just gonna imagine that it's the whole flower, the whole plant, because for me that is what would make sense. And I think I'm gonna use a handful of them. So I do have a lot of it, and I do like it to be very strong marigold aroma. So I'm going to use a handful of this. Okay, I think that's plenty. So now that I have gotten the mixture that I like, I am going to pour in some organic or eco olive oil. I do recommend that you use an eco or organic oil, just because you are applying this to maybe a little bit broken, damaged skin, and you don't want to have pesticides and whatnot in it. Basically do what you would prefer your own balm that you use on yourself to be. So I use this one, and I am just gonna fill it up so it goes all the way to the top. Here we go, that was about half the jar. So luckily I have another one. Our infused oil is ready to be placed somewhere dark and cool, so it doesn't oxidize the oil. If you put it in a windowsill, it will oxidize, so put it dark and cool. And then I am gonna be ready to make some more balm in a few weeks to a few months. Please get asky. I try to harvest regularly just so they don't go to seed when I don't want them to. You can see this one has gone to seed and are making tiny little seeds. I'll show you another one where you can see it more clearly. So here we have a bed with some different kinds of marigold, and I just want to show you how it looks when they go to seed, so you know when you are to pick them. So here we see just a normal one, also a normal one, also a normal one. And this one over here is looking a little bit under the weather, if you can see it. The petals start to like frill out. This one is not really there, but you can definitely tell that that one is gonna go to seed very, very soon. So you want to pick them before they reach this stage. I usually pick them not at this stage when they're just opened up, but maybe at this stage, the next day after opening up, just so you have a little more flower to harvest and so the bees can enjoy them a little bit. This one has gone to seed. Well, it got away from me and it looked like that and I didn't want to pick it, so here it is. This is a flower that has gone to seed and you can see the green seeds here. They will turn brown when it's time to pick them. So every year I pick my own seed. I let well, all the heads of the last batch go to seed. And then I pick them and I store them in a dry place so I can plant them the next year. And this saves a lot of money because I can plant a whole lot of marigolds with those seeds that I keep. It is a little bit later in the season now. I left a bunch of the flowers to go to seed and I'm already seeing the first flowers or flower seeds that is ready to pick. And here we see one. This is well and dried, so I'm just gonna hug it a little bit in my hand. And there we go. So I would probably leave these seeds out just inside in my house. There's no need to dry them in a dehydrator, but leave them out so they just dry up a little bit more, and then I would put them in a jar. And this is officially the first flower seed I have collected this year from the marigolds, and there's a lot more coming. You can see the difference here. The green ones are not ready, but the dry brown ones are. I'm gonna leave everyone that looks like that just for another week or so. They don't really fall by themselves. You can see this one is kind of moldy. Some of them we had a storm, so some of them kind of broke. So that's what we see a little bit. I might, because I was a little bit careful with the summer that we had this year, so I was a little bit careful with harvesting, but now I see a good amount of flowers that is ready to harvest, so I'm gonna go ahead and harvest some today as well. So yeah, the first seeds. Very nice. So usually every year this gets filled up, and I wanted to have 2 of these this year, but unfortunately we had a disaster kind of year with too little rain at the start and way too much at the end of it. So this is the first of my seeds. I would estimate that this is about 10 flowers, 10 small heads, and these ones are the first to go in. There we go. So now I just have to wait for the other ones to become ripe to pick, and I can harvest the rest of the flowers when I have filled this one up. So I hope this video gave you a little information about creating balms from beeswax and oil and what you can do with it and use it for. This is just my setup, and I think this has saved me at least thousands of kroners each year, just because just because the balms that you can get on the horsey side of the market are just so incredibly expensive, and for no reason at all really, because the products they use are cheap. Beeswax might be a little more expensive, but otherwise the olive oil and the different herbs, I mean, you can grow the herbs yourself, and in that way you just get them for free. So that is what I'm doing. So I'm only paying for the beeswax and oil and the essential oils that I choose to have in there. So I hope you got something out from this vlog, and if you have any recipes of your own that you are making, I will be very interested in knowing, so don't hesitate to write me. Vill ni ha lite äpple? Nom 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 nom. Still got some left, Mum. You want to have some? Oh, did you get a new sign? Huh? You want some?